Welcome to the Vibrant Life Show. This show is all about exploring the purposes God has placed in our lives and the passions He's placed in our hearts to reach the community He has placed us in for such a time as this. Whether we're hearing stories of those living out their passions or helping you discover your gifts, asking hard questions, or leaning into cultural moments, the purpose and goal of this show is to remind us that the life we're created to live is an adventurous one, an authentic one, a meaningful one. We are invited to live the vibrant life. Well, hi, everyone. I am your host, Allie Gentry, and welcome back to the Vibrant Life Show. We are on episode 10, which, to be honest, is huge for me. I can't even believe we already made it this far, and I just want to say thank you. Thank you for just your support along the way, for listening in, and for liking things, whether it's on podcast or on YouTube. We have had over 1,600 downloads on podcast and over 1,000 views on YouTube so far. And I just want to say thank you for that. And I know this is our radio show, but just know if you ever want to lean in and listen in at any other time, we are on all platforms and on YouTube each week. So I just wanted to say thank you. Thank you for going on this journey with me on the Vibrant Life Show. Now, today, I really want to lean in to this thing where we are getting back. It is August, so things are getting back. Our calendars are getting full, and I just feel like there's a lot of us who are exhausted and tired. And you might think, okay, why in the world are we talking about this? Is the vibrant life. Vibrant life. Vibrant means passionate. It means energetic. It means full and just whole and going after and being zealous. But we can't be those things if we don't add rest into our lives. I want to give you today, in any authority that I may have, is permission to rest. I mean, who out there is tired? I am so tired. I feel exhausted. And I'm sure, as we get back into this routine of life after things have been disrupted for the past 16 months, a lot of things, we're moving into what I like to call our next normal. It's not necessarily a new normal. I don't know how we're still getting back into things we used to do, but how are we going to move forward into this new season that we are in? I believe it's been over 500 days since we heard the words 15 days to slow the spread. And I know that most people don't even want to talk about this anymore. But the reality is we're still in this season, in this strange space where we're trying to navigate the things that have disrupted our lives. And then also now as we're moving back into the fall, as it is around here, how do we actually implement these things going forward? Because I want to admit, the life that I was living before all of this happened is not the life that I want to go back to. Is anyone else with me on that? And I just think that this vibrant life, when we are so bogged down with all of the things on our schedules and feeling like we have to produce all of the time, we start to get into this place where we lose our joy. We lose our fervor for life and that passion for doing the things, even the things that we know that we are created to do, or even created to serve, whether it's serving our family, serving our communities. It's hard to find that joy because we're so exhausted. And before this season kind of interrupted our lives in March of 2020, I think we were all on this hamster wheel of doing things all of the time. And then we had to stop. I actually remember the moment where I was out at dinner with my family and my aunt and uncle were in town and we were out at dinner. And I remember looking up and seeing that the NBA season had been canceled. And I'm just saying that was we were all sitting around the table. We're a big sports family. If you haven't picked up on a lot of sports analogies in my shows so far. And we were just kind of no, the NBA has been this can't be. And what we found is just a trickling of things being canceled and all of these extras we've had in our lives, all of these luxuries we've had in our lives were taken away from us. And we had to stop. We had to rest. We had to pause. But now that things are getting back in and school's starting and ministries are launching and things are getting back on our schedules, I wonder how many people are just like, no. I don't want to go back to the way that it was beforehand. Anybody else? And I heard this saying, I was at the Global Leadership Summit this last week, and it's one of my favorite conferences to go to each year. And Albert Tate, who is a phenomenal preacher, pastor, and just has so much insight, he said this saying, he said, maybe what we just went through was the lesson, and now is the test. So many of us thought that whole season was a test of ours, like how are we going to adjust? What are we going to do? How are we going to adapt? And I think that that's true. We did have to relearn a lot of things, but I think one of the biggest things when he said that line, maybe that was the lesson and this is the test, I went straight to the concept of rest. And I felt like I got permission to rest. And I want to give that to everyone else because I realized maybe what we learned during that season is that we don't have to have all of those things full on our schedules. Maybe what we learned is that we actually like to pause and not be so hurried. But we didn't even have a way out before all of this happened. Now, I want to acknowledge some horrible things have happened over these months, but I want to say that God is a God who can use all things for good. And so if we really believe that God can purpose all things for our good and his glory, then what are the good things that have come out of this season? And for me, what I've realized is that so many people are now almost gaining permission to say, I can't do that anymore. And learning the 2-letter word, no, no, I can't do that. I don't have the capacity, or maybe you do have the capacity, but you're choosing to rest. And so I wonder how many people, this is how our lives are, and we're starting to add it back in, and we're not sure necessarily how to go about doing this next normal of our lives. But we also know that we don't want to go back to what it was beforehand. And as a person who is in full-time ministry, actually, when all of this went down, I mean, a lot of people were able to stay home and not work. But in full-time ministry, I want to give a shout out to all pastors everywhere. If you go to your local church, I just encourage you to reach out, especially to your lead pastor, but any of your pastors or directors or leaders, and just thank them, because I am telling you, I have watched personally how hard it was to lead through this season and how people have taken on so much just to keep going. But now we're trying to adjust to the new way of living. And I think we all need permission, and we need to give permission, if you will, to our leaders to say, it's okay to take a moment, to take a break. We've got you. We've got you. I learned this lesson the hard way, and I wonder if we're all feeling a little bit burnt out, just a little bit. And I learned this. I actually went on sabbatical last summer. And I was supposed to be in Croatia, and I was supposed to be in Montenegro, and yet I found myself in Montana because we couldn't travel, we couldn't leave, and in that disruption, I ended up in Montana. Now, if I would have gone and gotten to travel in Europe, I would have been all over the place. I would have been, going on adventures every day. But when I ended up in Montana, I was on a ranch in Montana, and I just had a couple of weeks to stop. To literally just do whatever I wanted to. I had a 7-week sabbatical because every 7 years in our church they give, if you've been full-time, you get a 7-week sabbatical. And so that's what I was having. And I'm going to tell you, when I got there, I did not know how to sit still. Like, I felt like I needed to be doing stuff. I didn't have to. I was off the clock, but I didn't know how to stop. And honestly, I had to face this moment where I had a fear of not producing in my time away. And I realized in those quiet days where I was by myself and I'm on a ranch in Montana looking over the northern Rockies, just looking at them and just realizing that I'd found so much of my identity in what I was doing. And I think that's the culture we've lived in, is what we do defines who we are. And when we actually stop and rest, we are we are faced with the fact that all of the things that we've been trying to put off and not think about, we're actually faced with those things. So we have to confront some hard moments, some hard feelings maybe, or tough things that we have to work through that we've been kind of putting in a box and putting to the side. And then also hopefully receiving and remembering that who we were created to be. And if I believe that God has created each one of us with gifts and graces and a purpose. However, at the end of the day, God loves you because he created you. And sometimes it's hard to get back to just resting, and it doesn't matter what comes after my name, but just resting in who created me and that he loves me exactly where I am. I've heard this saying quite a bit. It says that we're not human doings, we're human beings. And we're getting to the point where remembering that we are created to be with God. And then out of that, he shows us what we are going to do. So I started realizing in all of that I started feeling guilty for resting and setting boundaries. Has anyone else felt like that before? Anybody felt guilty for those things? And if you're just joining us, this is the Vibrant Life Show with Gentry, and I'm talking about this permission to rest during this season. You might feel exhausted. You might feel like there's a lot going on, but I want to give permission and just speak that. And the reason why I'm saying permission is because lately I've been feeling like I just needed someone else to tell me, Allie, it's okay to not do things the same way that you've always done them. It's okay to take the risk. It's okay to take a day off. But why do we need that? Why do we need those rests? Because a lot of times we have this feeling like we're falling behind if we aren't producing something. We feel guilty for resting. We feel guilty for setting boundaries. And God brought me to this on my sabbatical last summer. In Luke 12, verses 27 through 28, it says, "Consider how the wildflowers grow. They don't labor or spin thread, yet I tell you, not even Solomon in all of his splendor was adorned like one of these. If that's how God clothes the grass, which is in the field today and is thrown in the furnace tomorrow, how much more will he do for you, you of little faith?" You of little faith. Those words hurt. Those words, because I knew they were straight to my soul. It's what I like to call the Holy Spirit truth bombs that I like going on around here, where it's like, that hurt to hear, but it's also exactly what I needed. God pointed out that my faith levels were low. I was depending on myself to produce, and I'm sitting there on a ranch in Montana trying to read books that further my growth and listen to podcasts that give me more knowledge. And I actually ended up in that deciding I wasn't going to post on social media for 2 months. I was mainly going to read fictional books. I was only going to read podcasts for fun, and I only listened to music, lots of music, and just decided to rest and enjoy what God has given me and just rest in that. But the reality is that's not how life operates on a sabbatical. Like, I had to get back into the real world. So how do we actually implement rest in our daily lives? Now, I've had to come to the point of figuring out what works for me and what doesn't work for me. And that's, trial and error. And I just want to encourage you that sometimes when I'm about to tell you some of the things that I do that help give me rest each week, is not legalistic. It's not necessarily a format, but hopefully it's just a jumping off point for you to start deciding and looking through maybe what fits into your life. So one of the things that I do every week is I have a Sabbath day. Now, granted, it's a goal of mine to do it every week. It doesn't always happen every week the exact same day, but usually it's Mondays. And I've gotten to this place where if anybody texts me, if there's anything to do with work, I don't answer back until Tuesday. So if you ever try to reach out to me on those days, that's why. I'm not purposely ignoring you. However, I'm horrible at texting, just the worst. And you know what? I have best friends that attest to this. Is not like just because it's you. Okay. I just want to speak that out if you feel personally attacked by my lack of texting ability. But I've just decided that I'm not going to text on Mondays. Another thing that I don't do is from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., I don't respond to people unless it's like my family or something like critical. Thursday nights are my nights. So if you ever ask me to do something on a Thursday, I'm going to tell you I'm busy. because it says me on my calendar. And now I just told my secret. So maybe that'll just be helpful for everyone. But I have to figure out a rhythm where Mondays are my day off. Thursday nights are my nights where I just do whatever brings me joy. And I want to also say that rest looks different for people. It's not necessarily doing nothing, which is okay to do that, but it's doing the things that bring you joy. Just this last Saturday night, I had the night off. I took the whole day as my Sabbath, actually, because last week was really busy. And I just got out watercolors as a little 32-year-old painting with my watercolors because it was restful. It was enjoyable. It was creative. And I got to rest and I just had my music on and I just got refilled. And I had to stop myself from producing anything that actually, in what the world would say, mattered. Because a lot of times, I think that what happens is that in Hebrews, it says, "For the person who has entered his rest has rested from his own works, just as God did from his. Let us then make every effort to enter that rest so that no one will fall into the same pattern of disobedience." So when we do not rest, we're saying that it relies on us, that it's on our shoulders to carry it through, but we're called to make every effort to enter rest so that we can refocus and trust God alone. If we never rest, if we're never taking, 30 minutes during the day, if we're never taking those days off, then what happens, it says in Hebrews where it says we fall into the same pattern of disobedience. And I believe that disobedience is the fact that we start to rely on ourselves and trust in ourselves. And that becomes pride, that we think that we can do it. When really, when we're resting, even when you have so much work to do, and you rest and you depend and you trust that God will somehow make a way, you know what? I want to challenge you just to try it. When you have a lot to do and you have not rested, I want you to just say, God, you know all the things that I have to do. However, I'm going to trust you to provide in the amount of time in those other days to get this stuff done. But I'm going to stop for a moment and rest and trust that you will provide. And every time, never fails, that I have done that, He has provided, He has made a way, He has brought ideas within the time frame. And I think He wants us to know and remember that it actually doesn't rely on us. And it's actually a relief, I feel like, whenever I remember this doesn't rely on us. However, this new rhythm, it will look weird to other people. So I also am single, and I'm not saying that to get a date. Just need to always make sure that disclaimer is in there. But I am single, so it actually gives me the ability to do different things in different ways than if you were married with children. I try to once a month get away for at least a day, if not a whole weekend or a couple of days, where I'm just alone and I just rest in who God, maybe He brings up ideas and maybe I get a way to work on some things, but I do travel a lot and it's because I find creativity in it. And I've learned that as an introvert, yes, I am an introvert, which is also a shock to many people. I am an outgoing introvert. So as an introvert, I have to get alone even more often than some other people might. And people look at my life sometimes and I feel like they're kind of like, oh, she's taking off again. She's running away again. Like, well, Allie's like always gone. And yeah, I do. It's true. However, the rhythm that works for me might not work for someone else, and your rhythm might look strange to other people. And I went to Italy. So I actually went to school over in London for a little bit. And we went to Italy for our fall break, which was amazing. We went to Italy for a week and then Greece for a week. And when I was in Italy, I remember being in Florence. It was our first full day in Italy. And we had gone out. We had gone and gotten, coffee and pizza, probably way too early, and gelato, then maybe pizza again and gelato again. But it was around like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that's perfect time for coffee, right? So we went out to go get coffee, and nothing was open. Like nothing was open, and we were so confused. I'm telling you, I will never forget that moment where like where is everyone? Everything shut down. And we come to learn that there's this thing called a siesta. And there's these siestas where from about 2 to 4 in Italy, and I'm pretty sure also in Spain, everything shuts down and people just go take naps or hang out, and then they come back around 4, and then that's why their dinners are later and they sleep in later, and it's just this beautiful rhythm. However, that wouldn't work here in America, although I would love for it to work here in America. Like, can we just like make that the point of the show? Make siestas great again. Okay. Anyways, or for the first time in America. But I will say that rhythms look different for different people, and we don't need to necessarily look at other people and think, okay, theirs is strange because they're actually taking rest, or the way that I do it is strange because I'm taking rest. But I want to challenge you to say no to things so that you can give your best yes to the things that matter. So sometimes you might have to shut down for a couple of hours in the afternoon to fully live that fullness, that vibrant life that we're called to. Or maybe you need to take one morning every week, or 30 minutes in the morning when you wake up earlier, or after everyone's gone to bed. Or maybe it's just putting on wonderful music and sitting outside for 10 minutes during lunch. Maybe it's setting your phone down and just letting things be silent while you're eating, which is a weird feeling, to be honest. Sometimes I always have my phone in front of me. But my hope for this is that we take the risk and step out in faith to trust God, because He has called us to rest in Him. And in Scripture, we're supposed to work 6 days and then rest on the 7th. That's the pattern that God has laid out, the Father laid out since the very beginning. And a lot of times, I have a whole theory I'm not going to go into here about the whole 5 work days and then 2 days off. We were created to work. And so we do not get a pass on like, don't work, we just need to rest all the time. However, I do think that if we can produce and we work those 6 days and we work for that 7th day and we really trust God in it, that He will make it abundant, because Scripture says that the land will get its rest. And this last season for me, I hit burnout. And the land got its rest. I had physical things that I had to, like healing that I had to do. My emotional state was probably not fantastic because I hit this burnout space. But it was preventable. And that's what my heart and hope is that when we step back into the test that we're now in now, when we're starting to move back into, or not back into, but move into our next normal, that because God has given us that command to rest. So God has given you permission to rest. So how do you implement this in everyday life? How are you going to decide? Maybe you're in a ministry. I mean, even personally, I run 2 different ministries, and both of them will look different this season, specifically based off of rest. Because one thing I've heard from a lot of people is that I'm just tired. I can't say yes to everything anymore. And I think that this is pretty much across the board from what I've been hearing. And so if you're a leader, I just want to challenge you to figure out ways to meet your people in that space. Create maybe a different rhythm in your workplace. Create a different rhythm in your ministry. Create a different rhythm in your home. And then, of course, in your own life. Because life looks different now. And that's okay. And so if we step out, I want to give permission to say, okay, rest is important here. Rest is an important part of the way that we lead. And so I want to just encourage you in that, and also just get some sleep, people. Like, go to sleep. I love that story of Elijah. Oh my gosh, I just love that story. But Elijah in 1 Kings 19, whenever he's running and he just done all of this amazing stuff for God, and then he all of a sudden is just like, I don't want to live anymore. I can't do this, God. And he falls asleep. God sends him to his deep sleep. He falls asleep. He wakes up. He eats a snack. He drinks some water, and then he goes to sleep again. And maybe that's for you. Some of you just need to sleep a little bit longer right now. This might be the season of recuperation, and that's okay. That's okay. And so in this world, in our society where we push production and we push just all of always being on this hamster wheel of always this producing something, may we look different than the world by implementing and being okay with resting in our daily lives, in our overall rhythm, in our workplace, because that will bring us to live the vibrant life that we're called to. And so I just want to encourage you, if you're tired today, look at ways that you can find to start implementing a new rhythm of rest. You have full permission to, because God has given it to you. And He has invited you to live the vibrant life. Thank you for joining me on the Vibrant Life Show. I would love to connect with you and get to know you. My favorite place to hang out is over on Instagram at allie.gentry or over on Facebook. You can also go to my website, alliegentry.com. That's ALIGENTRY.com. Sign up for my newsletter to stay up to date and get links to the show on all platforms after we air, the show's YouTube channel, and really just all the things. I am so honored to get to hang out with you today. My heart is that you remember that each day is an invitation to live the vibrant life.